right, construction champions, it's your host, Ron Nussbaum, and we're here for another episode of Construction Champions Podcast, where we're burning the damn house down. Twice a week, every Monday and Thursday, you can find amazing guests on this podcast. See, I'm not even going to start saying you can find me here because, like I said, you guys are here for the guests. I'm here for the guests. Think about it. Twice a week, you guys are tuning in. I get to spend time every week recording these episodes with absolutely legends, people that understand business. They understand your personal life. They understand all of the struggles better than we ever could. And that's why they're here to help move the ball for us. And today is no different. Jim, it is fantastic to have you here with us today.
Right on. Thanks for the welcome. I love that enthusiasm. Let's pump it up.
Hey, man, the construction industry has been very good to me. And I believe that excitement, I owe the construction industry that. If we would just have some excitement around what we're doing, who we do it for, it would change a lot. Like, just think if a guy showed up at a job site and had that much excitement about the project that he was working on, like what ripples could be created in the construction industry.
Oh man, that would be awesome. That ripple keeps rolling too, it gets everybody else jacked up on your side.
Absolutely, man. But why don't you introduce yourself to all the construction champions out there? Tell them a little bit about yourself.
All right, I'm the old dude. My name is Jim Tracy. I'm from Eagle, Idaho, and I've been in the construction trades or around the trades for a little over 40 years. So my grandson, as you noticed, named me the Grampion, which he said, "You're not a Gramp anymore. You're not a champion anymore." I'm like, "What? You can't say that." He says, "You're the Grampion." I'm like, "Okay, that'll work." And so that stuck. I do a podcast. I do a lot of speeches to try and inspire people, both in the trades and outside of them. But yeah, I'm just having fun trying to end well.
Awesome, man. I love it. And the construction industry, I say it on here all the time, is we're just like everything else. It's just like any other business.
Yeah.
We just got to stop looking at it as construction and just start looking at it as I have a business that we just do construction. Like you can apply everything from everywhere, but we can get too narrow focused on, oh, we're in construction and it's super different. I mean, do we have our uniqueness? Yes, but 90% of standard principles apply in the construction business.
It's always the fundamentals, isn't it? Get back to the basics, get back to the fundamentals, and keep your eye on the ball.
Absolutely, man.
Yeah.
So I'm going to jump right in there. I'm going to ask you the $1 million question.
Okay.
That is, what makes a construction champion?
Wow.
Hey, construction champions. It's your host, Ron Nussbaum here. And I want to talk to you about how you can automate all of your marketing. We've had so many people on here talk about getting the systems in place. Well, we have partnered with Build 12 and Construction Champions podcast. Les O'Hara, the founder, what really excites me is his 30 years in the industry. And now he's built a system to be able to nurture your leads and continue to utilize that. I personally use the system myself. Build 12 is absolutely amazing. There's a lot of value in there, and it's a way to start getting away from Angie's List and all of that kind of stuff and start actually creating your own leads every day and have a system for them. So go on our website, check out the show notes, go check out Build 12 and what it can do for the front end of your business today. It's absolutely amazing. I highly recommend going and meeting with Les and his son, Devin, and talking to him about what they built for their own business so the rest of the industry can take benefit from that. Here on Construction Champions, we're all about helping each other out. And what is better than contractors helping contractors? I say nothing. So let's go take this to the next level. Go check out Build 12. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me or Les or his son, Devin. We're here to help. We want to continue to grow the industry.
What makes a construction champion? I haven't watched your podcast a lot. I started to drill down into that, and I'm like, Is there one thing? Well, yeah, no, yeah. Hey, you know what? For me, a construction champion is someone who sets their standards higher than those around them.
Mm,
That's what makes a champion. If you think about the GOATs, whether it be football, baseball, golf, whatever, their standards are higher than the people that they surround themselves with, and that lifts everybody up. So
mm.
for me, I would say high standards and higher standards than those around you.
I agree, because they're the ones that don't accept anything less than those standards.
Exactly.
And not only do they hoard, what I love about that, and you bring it, the sports thing is they have high standards for everybody around them, but they have even higher standards for themselves.
Exactly.
They become beyond reproach, because when you want people to do stuff at a high level, you better be damn willing to do it at a higher level than what you're asking, or
Yeah.
else you're going to get a lot of backlash, especially in
Yeah.
construction.
If you don't pay the price, nobody around you is going to pay the price either. And if they see you paying more, they're going to jump on board.
Hmm. So how do we help create that culture throughout construction when I think we
You
have a lot
know,
of owners that don't show up with those standards?
yeah. Well, I would tell you that one of the things that I was in the tower business for a long time, and so we're stacking steel, and we're sometimes 100 feet, sometimes 700 feet up in the air. And so safety takes on a whole new meaning when you're over 35 foot off the ground and being tied off and paying attention to those safety details. So when it came time, when we got over 200 employees, then all of a sudden I could justify sitting in the office and working on bids and cranking out financials and worrying about, HR and all this stuff. Okay. But there was nothing more important for me than physically going out on site and touching the guys and making sure that they knew my understanding of what safety practices should be.
Mm,
So when I did surprise inspections, I was actually the guy who went out there and said, "Hey, this is why it's important." And then when you take the time to do that, all of a sudden you don't have their ears anymore. Now you got their hearts because that they see you, and then they understand that you care about, like, if you fall off a tower, it's not going to hurt me nearly as much as your wife and kids, so let's take care of them. Help
mm.
me take care of them by you just like taking this to heart. Take care of those details.
I think one of the keys in what you said there was going out there and showing what you expect. I think
Yeah.
too often we just expect people to know, especially when it comes to safety. It's
Hmm.
like, well, they should just know this. Like, but that's not having a high standard. I just like this is how we do it here. Like you
Yeah.
might have did it different somewhere else, but like this is how we want it done there. If there is alignment, but at least you're showing the way.
Yeah.
So if because here's what I just love is when you show up at a job site and somebody gets completely pissed off about how something's happening, and then you're like, well, I mean, have you ever showed them or told, like, did they know that's how you wanted the
Yeah.
bricks stacked over
Exactly.
there, or is that just how you do it and they did it differently and now you're pissed about it? Like, we have to be willing to show what our expectations are. What does great look like? This is what it looks like here, and then hoard people to it. You can't hoard people to it if you don't show them.
And then there's two parts to that, I think. Number one is they have to understand the standard. And so I went out on job sites, and our standards were, in some cases they were, Fortune 500 companies. And all those folks want to know is they're not going to get laid off or fired tomorrow or whatever. So their job is in our hands. So when I talked to our guys, I was like, well, what should we do with this? And I said, well, perfect is good enough. And when you set a standard like perfection, it's very, very difficult, if even possible, to attain it. But what if we hit incredibly excellent on our way to perfection? And that takes care of that customer. And then they understand that that our priority is them. And
Mm.
then add to that, when you set a standard and you go out on a job site and maybe perhaps that standard isn't being met, um, there's a lack of understanding there. And so you can get ticked off and you can scream and holler, or you can use that moment to teach. And especially with, I mean, with the labor problems we have, I talk on stages all the time, and people are like, well, how do we get along with those old people? Well, I'm those old people. And how do we get along with the X's, Y's, the Z's, the millennials, and now even the alphas? How are we going to talk to those people? Well, let's start by listening. And so we talk about generous listening and relationships and respect. Now, those weren't part of the equation when I came up in the industry because I had some old dude beating on me. But if I beat on people now, you know what happens? I have an empty job site. And I don't get anything done, and I don't get to teach anybody anything, and nobody grows, and nobody's paying taxes or buying houses. We need to turn ourselves into people who teach people so that they can become productive, proud of their trade, task oriented people who deliver and delight the customer. Don't just satisfy the customer. Any jackwagon can satisfy the customer. Let's delight them, man. Let's make them just talk about how freaking wonderful we are.
Yeah, and I think, man, like I'm with you on when I came into the construction industry, and it it's amazing what is acceptable, but what's really not acceptable. And if
Yeah,
you're willing to be different, people will line up to work for you.
yeah,
Like I remember when we drew the line in the sand and said, we're going to change our reputation, and not just with customers, because we had a good reputation with customers, but we're going to change our reputation with what it's like to work here and
yeah,
work in construction. And it took a couple years,
yep,
but after a couple years, we no longer worried about hiring people or what that looked like. And instead of people saying, "Oh, I want to go work there," they were recruiting everybody they knew, and
yeah,
people were asking people that they knew that worked at our company, "How do I get a job there?"
yeah.
And all we did was just exactly what you said, was listen,
And it
stop.
takes a while, man.
Yeah, it does. It's
That
not.
2 years, that takes 2 years for them to believe you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because I mean anybody can do it for a week or a month or a year, but man, when you do the same thing for 2 years, people start to go, oh, that's not who they are, or that's not what they are, that's who they are.
Mm-hmm.
That's
And then
awesome, bro.
in construction, we just get right now, because we're very so, and this is where it gets confusing. You've been around it. Like projects take forever. We
Yeah.
understand. You read the blueprints, you execute, you build it. It takes however long.
Customer changes it, architect fixes it, engineer
But
engineer makes it
when we
right.
yeah, when we look at our companies, we expect everything to change within like one company meeting.
Yeah.
Man, the business is going to
Yeah.
change.
Ain't gonna happen. Ain't gonna
No,
happen.
no, not at all.
Yeah.
And that's where that setting those, like you said, set those expectations and then listen. I remember when
Hmm.
I finally just realized, like, it's all about listen. Like, I'm just here to listen.
Yeah.
That's it. Ask questions and listen.
Yeah.
That's what the
Remember when we started?
greatest business is.
The management methods when we got into this game were the beatings will continue until the morale improves.
I remember I was part of that. I
Can't even give somebody a good beating anymore.
yeah, like it, but that's how we evolve the industry. That's how
Yeah,
we build these championship teams, is because you just create the standards, you hold yourself above those standards, and you make sure everybody understands them. Like as a leader, that's all you have to do. I mean, I say all, it's a lot. Like to
yeah,
just be above the line all the time, listen and explain.
yeah.
That's it.
Live it.
Yeah.
I'm wondering if your listeners would know, is it easier these days, even with the rising interest rates and things like that, is it easier these days to acquire customers or a labor force that loves working where you are? Because if it's easier to acquire customers, I mean, anybody can get customers these days. So you must be doing something right. But if it's difficult for you to attract a labor force to work with you, you're the problem.
Yeah, I love that because ever since I can remember, we've always had a labor shortage. Now I
Yeah.
understand some stuff's changing. There's different nuances always, but show me a time recently, like that's just I got any time
Hmm.
when there was affluent enough people to keep when construction businesses or the trades were not saying we are in desperate need of people.
Yeah. And it covers every trade. It's not just, it's especially the skilled trade. I mean, you're always going to be able to find laborers, but are you going to find somebody who takes that shovel and you say, hey, I need that ditch a foot wide, 2 foot deep, and start here, and I need you to finish in Cleveland. I mean, there's a few guys out there who wouldn't look up until they said, hey, I just crossed the Ohio border.
Mhm.
Those are the kind of people that we want to have. But in order to do that, we need to train them to focus on a task and see it through to completion. And we're dealing with generations now. A lot of my speeches are to generations. I love talking to kids because kids tell me how it really is.
Yeah.
And when they come in, they're like, why would I do that? And I'm like, well, because of the satisfaction of a job well done. What's that? Well, let me show you. Let's do something together. And when you teach them that there is satisfaction in delivering quality and excellence, all of a sudden it's like bing, this light goes off, and they don't get it from a video game. They get it from someone investing in them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's the same as it's always been. Like the same principles apply because like you said, people just want to just invest in them. You look
Yeah.
like I always say it on here when somebody brings up a point about something, and I'm like, go look at the big dog in your area, and then
Exactly.
what I'm sure they have issues. We all have issues,
Yeah.
but they got enough people. They're growing. They got customers. They have a back. So it's not that your geographic or area isn't capable of doing this. It's not that your business isn't capable of doing this. It's us as leaders have to be capable of doing this to attract the talent, to bring them in, to invest, and to make it happen.
Yeah, and I like to establish a corollary that people can understand. If you're flying a jet and you're going from Seattle to New York and you fly in a straight line, you're not going to get there because a straight line is not the curvature of the earth. So now, number one, you got to plan. And the plan is not plan a straight line, it's plan the curvature of the earth. And then you have to make consistent little corrections. Because if you don't, the wind's going to push you off, gravity's going to pull you down, thrust is going to change with air density. There's a lot of things that are going to change. So you need to make little incremental corrections to stay on path. Now, if you don't, if you like fall asleep at the yoke for a little while, also now you got to make big corrections. And big corrections burn fuel, burn time, burn energy, and they're just bad for flight. In business, if you're not paying attention, then you're not making those subtle little corrections that keep you on the path that you want to be on so you can get where you want to go. And when you make those little corrections, your people respond like, oh, well, that's cool. But if you make big corrections, they go, oh, that's change. I don't like that, man. I don't like change. Who does? Nobody does.
But that's how we always do it. It was like we're
Yeah.
going to make these big course corrections instead
Yeah.
of just rolling things out, a couple
Yeah.
of things quarterly, just little whatevers. That's how you slowly get that plane to change courses, to bring it back
Yeah.
in. And just don't fall asleep then. Once you
Yeah.
get it back in, like it's why this stuff takes time. It doesn't just
Yeah.
happen overnight. Because if you try to make it happen overnight, you end up in a wreck.
Yeah. Well, not only that, if you make those course corrections, the people that are flying with you, they become faithful that you're going to keep their job, their career, their income, their family. We're feeding families. And so if they trust us to keep it on course and we earn that trust, it's not given to us. We got to earn it every day. And when
Mm.
we earn that trust from the people out in the field, you know what they do? They express it by listening to us when we say, "Oh, let's make our standard a little higher. Let's not be better than the next guy. Let's be better than our best self." Wow.
That's exactly what happens out in the field. And
Yep.
the amazing thing is that like construction, it's in the trades, like we're a really loyal bunch.
Mm-hmm.
And naturally, inherently, like you said, like we just need somebody that is going to take care of us, invest in us, give us a place where we can thrive, and we'll never leave.
Yeah.
Problem is we keep getting in environments where there's major course corrections happening, and we're like, hold on a minute. This isn't what I signed up for here. Like I thought I was going to be part of this team and we were going to do great things. And that I think that's why you see so much turning around, because the companies that are doing it right, look at the tenure of the
Yeah.
guys that are there. They've been there. And it's not
Exactly.
because like they have some super powerful like group of people. It's because we're just inherently loyal people. Like we get in an environment that takes care of us. We want to be there. We want to take care of that business and continue to help it grow.
Yeah. It's really awesome. We've had people work for us for 25 years, 20 plus years, because we've only been around for 24. But we've had people work for us for a long time. And people out in the marketplace, they would say, "How did you do that?" I'm like, "Well, I could give you like the $24 psychological reason why it's imperative that, I broke it down to one thing. The people who worked for us, they know that I love them." And that's really not really cool or popular in construction to actually love someone. But you know what? I relate it back to safety. I was working with a guy and he lost a couple of fingers. And so they got him to the hospital. We got his we got his fingers off the off the subfloor and took him in there with him. But I was the one who had to go to his house, and the longest walk in the world is the 50 feet between the sidewalk and the front porch. I will tell you that from personal experience. Um, but he never forgot that I went and got his wife and picked her up and arranged for grandma to come over to take care of the kids. And I brought her to the hospital and made sure that they had everything they need. And frankly, it was his fault that he lost his fingers. He was doing stupid things and he wasn't, doesn't, he knew he wasn't doing what he was supposed to do. Um, but the difference was nobody like picked up the phone and said, "Hey, your husband's hurt, get to the hospital." That's too much shock. Someone cared enough to go and go to his wife and pick her up, tell her everything was going to be okay, transport her because we didn't want her driving, 800
Yeah.
miles an hour to get to save the husband who's already in the hospital feeling bad about everything. But we got her. And what he told me later, this is a couple of years later, he's like, "Man, when you did that, we knew you loved us." Like, "Whoa, all right. I like that." It's not embarrassing. I like that. If your people love working for you, it's personal, man.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. People don't work for people, or people don't work for companies. They work for people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he probably became one of the biggest champions you have for job site safety.
Oh, you better
Yeah.
believe it. Yeah. Yeah.
Awesome, man. See, you're doing the right thing. You're doing a lot of the great things out there. I love it. I love what
Yeah.
you're doing. I mean, to have a company rocking and rolling for as long as you have, had staff around, people that love you, and I 100% agree. I mean, that's what would get you through the hard stuff
Yeah.
for yourself, the employees, when stuff isn't going right. One of the reasons they're going to stick around and continue to do the hard stuff is because you create that love. That's, I still say, a lot of the guys I worked with, I mean, they're some of the best guys I've ever met, some of the best people, and I loved it. I loved
Yeah.
being around that. And like that is what we need in construction. Like it's okay to say that.
Yeah, it's not politically correct. It's not like, yeah, you can walk up and say, "Hey, man, I love you." But wait a minute, you're like, "Hey, man, I really do. I
Well,
mean, I
and we
love you. I
really
love your
care.
family, and I love the work you're doing." And so when he's taking care of you, he's taking care of your family. And when you're taking care of him, you're taking care of his family or her
Mhm.
family. What goes around comes around.
And you think about the connection between people within the company, and typically if anything's happening, the first person you're going to call is going to be that guy you worked with all day, or
Yeah, yeah,
you create these connections and these relationships that become very powerful. And we have the opportunity to be able to be the one that harvests that, and to create that environment where that can happen and people can have those relationships amongst themselves, not just with the company, but just as a group of people.
yeah. And the natural outcome of that is that the quality goes up because I don't want to disappoint you. So I'm going to do best. I don't want to hit your standard now. I want to make you thrilled. I want to make it easier for you to go sell another job, to keep me going, to keep the crew going, to keep my family going, to keep the grocery store going. It all starts to snowball. And the
Yeah.
better you do at taking care of your people, the better they do at taking care of you. And that takes care of the customer. So when you come up and there's a mitered corner and it's not perfect, he looks at the guy who started work last week and says, "What are you doing? We don't do it like that here."
I love it, man. I love
Yeah.
it. I absolutely
Bingo.
love it. So, hey, for all the construction champions out there, if they wanted to connect with you, find you, learn more about, see you even speak, what's the
Yeah.
best ways for them to do that?
Easiest way is probably on my website. It's thejimtracy.com and JMTRACY.com, or catch me on YouTube. I got a podcast on YouTube. We talk to champions. It's really cool. I mean, I found you because I'm the Grampion and Grandpa talks with champions. So yeah, we're kind of running a parallel path here. So that's
Awesome.
really good. The Grampion on YouTube, or just my website, thejimtracy.com.
Awesome, man. Well, thank you for taking the time and being on the show today.
All right. Hey, man, thanks for inviting me. And you keep spreading the good word out there. You're doing an awesome job. And we appreciate you doing what you're doing for our beloved construction industry, man.
Thank you. I appreciate that, and I definitely will keep doing it.
Right on. Keep her rocking.
Awesome. All
All
right,
right.
construction champions, another episode in the bag. Where, I mean, what's the standard? Not the standard on the job site, but what is your standard? Your personal standard. I would go look in the mirror. Ask yourself that. And then once you understand that, are you explaining that? Because I think that right there is the bridge that barely ever gets built when we talk about what it's like to own a business and have employees in that relationship. And why are employees upset? Why are business owners upset? Is because we're never bridging the gap. We're never we're building that bridge, whatever. I'm trying to have some analogy. It doesn't even matter. What you need to do is understand your standards and then have a clear way to explain that to where everybody can understand it. And then make sure you are being held up to them. Make sure you do them. I remember we used to start between 6:30 and 7 a.m. I expected everybody to be there. I would get there at 4:30 to 5. And people would show up like at 5:30 and be in amazement that I was there. And I'd be like, if you think I expect you to be here between 6:30 and 7, and I'm not already here working, what's going to happen? Like, it's only going to take a couple weeks of you guys figuring out, like, if I'm not even there, that you're just going to show up late and continue to do that. And I prefer to just set the standard and set the bar. So what you notice is the guys that executed very highly, they would be showing up at the same time I would be. I'd pull in at 5 and guys would already be there. They're like, what are you guys doing here? Well, I thought you got here at 4:30, boss. Like, we've been here for a half hour. And you start to create this environment where it's no longer like what's expected. Like, that's not the standard anymore. The standard is, how good could we really be? How great could we really do a job if we just tried to be the best amongst the best? That's how champions create these championship cultures. It's how Jordan did it. It's how Brady did it. It's how Kobe did it. They were way beyond what they expected, and the expectations were high. But when people figured out that the expectations were nowhere near what they were willing to put in, everybody else drifted past those high expectations and over to the realm where they were at, where the absolute highest standards existed. So champions, make sure you go out, you check out all of our fantastic sponsors. And until next time, be the champion you were meant to be.
Introducing BuilderComms, the future of construction management. Built by industry veterans, our platform simplifies your workflows and boosts efficiency. From field operations to leadership, we've covered it all to help you sleep better and enhance your projects. With BuilderComms, expect reduced errors, save time, and exceptional outcomes. Join the thousands of builders and contractors revolutionizing their processes and achieving greatness. Discover more about us at buildercomms.com.